All right. We have another poem. This one was inspired by two things. I'm currently taking a hip hop pedagogy class called Hip Hop Lens, or Hip Hop Through a Lens of Society, or just society looking through hip hop from a sociological framework. Or these are big words that really just mean human behavior and stuff. I'm studying a major which is about how people in big places and even small places create these linguistic or language barriers that are really just imposed as their constructs, really to make people feel more significant, more important, smarter, when in reality, understanding isn't a bad thing. And honestly, a lot of these languages are created so that people don't understand. And so hopefully, with these poems, I can try my best to allow understanding to be seen through them. Because I don't want to build a wall that's so high that it can't be climbed or jumped over. Um, and if it's a wall, I hope that it can be dug around or people can go under. With that being said, I'm taking this course and I was inspired to make this. And then I was also inspired by this guy I saw on TikTok many moons ago. And he goes to Harvard and he was talking about how sometimes, even though we look down upon these institutions and look to dismantle them, he offered an alternative perspective that I hadn't considered. And he said, if we're going to allow our voices to be heard, we have to be heard in places that usually don't even consider us as a presence. We have to sometimes infiltrate just to show that we're normal. And I didn't realize that that had made such an impact on me until the hip hop class and this poem. So it's called Hip Hop is Us in a Way. I am taking a hip hop pedagogy course, which, again, a word that just means learning or ways of learning, in university, and I felt the first friction before I learned the first term. How does something born to refuse permission become a subject that asks for it? How does a culture that learned to live without gates get graded at the gate? I keep returning to that question like a needle dropping back into a groove it knows by heart. The sound not quite complaint, not quite prayer, more like a jaw set against a weather that has always been here. Because in the institution, hip hop arrives carrying receipts. Not just history, not just craft, not just the lineage of breath and breakbeat and drums, but proof. Proof that it is real, as if the real is not what held people up when nothing else did. It has to have proof that it is reputable, as if reputation is not a suit you rent to other rooms that already decided your shape long before you entered it. Proof that it is viable, as if viability is not a synonym for palatable, for convenient, for translated into a language that pretends it invented you the moment it learns how to cite you. And there is a bruise inside that, a slap that is not loud, a slap that smiles. It reminds me of life outside the syllabus, how so many of us have had to walk with a mirror in our hands, checking our posture for the comfort of strangers, shrinking our laughter, softening our edges, making ourselves easy to digest for eyes that were trained on us long before we could name them. The gaze does not always announce itself. Sometimes it moves in quietly, sets up furniture in your mind, rearranges what you think is yours. Sometimes it makes you perform your own legitimacy, as if you are a guest in your own body. So, in this class, when we spend so much time proving, I feel the ache of repetition. I love it. I love the way the room fills with names that feel like cousins. I love the way a beat can become a method, the way a line can be both evident and escape route. I love how hip hop does not need a whiteboard to be intelligent, but I am sad too. Sad that the first lesson can sound like, here is why you deserve to be here. Sad that we have to dress a living thing in professional language, like a uniform, like armor, like a compromise. Then again, maybe two things can be true. I try and find comfort in this. Maybe the proving is the poison and also the antidote. Maybe the pressure is disrespect and also pressure testing. Because there is a strange power in forcing the institution to speak your name without laughing. There is power in making the academy read what it tried not to see, in making the same buildings that taught silence study sound, in making the same corridors that once policed bodies now host bodies that move to their own tempo and call it scholarship. Maybe legitimacy is not only a cage, maybe sometimes it is a crowbar, a way to pry open doors for the next person who will not have the time to explain their own existence. Maybe it is strategic, maybe it is infiltration, enemy from within kind of thing. Not a surrender, but a placement, a beat in the lecture hall like a heartbeat under a suit, a cipher where the seating chart is, a syllabus that looks polite but smuggles fire in its footnotes. Because hip hop has always known how to enter systems without becoming them, how to sample the master's records, and still make a song that tells the truth the master was never meant to sing. How to sample the master's records and still make a song that tells the truth the master never meant to sing. How to take what was built to confine and turn it into a stage. How to turn surveillance into choreography, poverty into percussion, dismissal into a chorus that becomes poverty into percussion, dismissal into a chorus that comes back louder. So maybe, yes, there is grief in the asking, and yes, there is something sacred in refusing to ask. However, maybe there is also a third thing, a kind of patience that is not obedience, a kind of studying that is not submission, a decision to stand inside the institution without letting it stand inside you, to learn the language without letting it rename you, to earn the credentials without letting credentials become the only truth. Because far often, many people who have these credentials had a language for it far sooner than when they enter these institutions. To say, I'm here because I've always been here. I'm here because the street is a library, the sidewalk holds a syllabus in its cracks, and every story we carried without permission was already a text. I am here because hip-hop is not a guest, it is a foundation. And if this place needs proof, fine. We will bring the proof. We will bring the evidence of breath, the evidence of survival, the evidence of art made under pressure that did not break. We will bring the citations, and we will also bring the base. We will bring the theory, and we will also bring the memory. We will bring the institution on its own terms. We will meet the institution on its own terms without forgetting our own. And when the room finally nods and says, yes, this belongs here, I will try not to mistake that for creation. I will remember they did not invent what they approved. They only learned late to stop pretending they could not hear it. Two things can be true. I can be grateful for the doorway and still mourn the fact that it needed a key. I can love the class and still hate the ritual of proving. I can want hip-hop to remain wild and still want it to be protected, archived, funded, taught, not as a museum piece, but as a living method. So, in this class, I carry both, the sadness and the strategy, the slap and the smile I return, not because I forgot, but because I learned the oldest trick. This is so sad. Sometimes you enter the building not to be welcomed, but to change what the walls are allowed to hold. And that's sometimes as simple as just being there. Sometimes you learn the rules so you can bend them into a beat. Sometimes you step into the establishment like an enemy from within, not to destroy everything, or maybe, but to rebuild the room so the next person does not have to prove what has always been true. An old truth. Thank you.